Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF, GITTEN Pei Gimel. We are holding 8 lines from the top of the Amud, Tanu Rabbanon. In yesterday's DAF, we had an interesting machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim in a case as follows. A fellow provided his wife with a get on condition that you don't marry such and such person. You cannot marry Ruvain. So actually there were 2 ways to present their machlokes. One version had it that it was chutz. Chutz means he made an exception. I'm divorcing you, and that divorce will not include, so to speak, Ruvain. So it will not enable you to marry Ruvain. You can marry anybody else. But this divorce does not pertain, does not benefit, does not affect your potential marriage to Reuven. So basically, as far as this fellow Reuven is concerned, you're not divorced. Chutz. So we're making an exception within that divorce. It's not a complete divorce. It doesn't apply to Reuven. And then there was another way to learn, more of a standard approach, more of a condition based deal. Almanas. He made a t'nai. It's a full divorce on condition. On condition that it snows tomorrow, condition you pay me a certain amount, on condition you don't marry Reuven. So there are 2 different ways to learn the machlokes. Either way, whether it's chutz or it's almanas, we have a machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer who says the divorce goes through and of course she must keep her end of the deal, whereas the Chachamim say, well, either all or nothing. Either it's a full comprehensive divorce that affects everybody equally, or it doesn't really take off. Tanu Rabbanon, we have a brisa that la'achar petirasei shel Rabbi Eliezer, after Rabbi Eliezer's passing, nichnasu arba'a zakenim lahashav al dvara. 4 elders, 4 Talmidei Chachamim came in, sat down, and responded. Each one provided an argument to oppose Rabbi Eliezer, to question Rabbi Eliezer's chidush. Eluhain. These are the 4 zakenim: Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and finally Rabbi Akiva. And each one had something to say to question Rabbi Elazar's shita. Nena, Rabbi Tarfon Vamar. So the first one to speak up, Rabbi Tarfon, he called out as follows. He says, I can't accept Rabbi Eliezer's approach, this partial divorce, no. And I'll even point out to sort of an irony, something that puts it into question. It can't work. Imagine a fellow divorced his wife. Let's call him the Megarish. Okay, the Megarish, the fellow who divorced, tells her, look, marry anybody except for, let's call him Reuven. Okay, and she went and she listened to him, and she married Shimon, who happens to be Reuven's brother. And Shimon passed away with no children. Typically, the brother of that deceased person would be meyabim her, in this case Reuven, but he's forbidden. So we cancel yibum. As a result of this fellow's conditioning, she can't have yibum. So basically, doesn't it result in the Megarish uprooting the mitzvahs yibum min ha-Torah? It can't be. It cannot be so. This is not the divorce process, the krisis discussed in the Torah, because it's something that opposes a mitzvah. And therefore it cannot be. Nena, Rabbi Yossi Aglili v'Amar, he responded as follows: where else do we find that something, the same thing, will be forbidden to one and permitted to the other? Such as this Isha, who is usher to this Ruvain and mutter to anybody else. It's inconsistent. It can't be. Ha'asr, typically when something is forbidden, it's to all equally. Asr l'koil, va'mutar, something which is mutar l'koil. Halamata shein zekrisis, apparently this is not a system that works. Nena Rabbi Elazar ben Azari v'amar, he responded to Rabbi Elazar's chidush. The pasuk calls it sefer krisis. It's meant to disengage, to fully disconnect the husband from the wife. Krisis means davar ha'koreis beino lebeino. It disengages them. Halamata shein zekrisis, apparently this type of divorce package can't hold water because she's still bound to him with respect to Reuven. Right? Why can't she marry Reuven? Because of her former husband's stipulation. That's not krisis. That's not called disengaging and disconnecting. So I disagree with Rabbi Eliezer's type of divorce. Then Rabbi Akiva v'Amar, so finally Rabbi Akiva responded, and he says like this. Imagine this Isha went and married, a stranger, somebody out there. She kept away from Reuven, she married somebody else. Okay, so far so good. And what happened? And they had a couple of kids, right? Vinis Armel, Vinis Garsh, and then she was widowed from that stranger, or got divorced from that stranger. And then what does she do? Suppose she went back and married the forbidden man, Reuven. In which case, she's now undermining her whole divorce from the original husband. It's basically canceling the divorce. And as a result, what's going to happen? She was never really divorced originally, and the other fellow that she had kids with was really not her husband, because she wasn't really divorced yet. Get bottle it turns out that by doing so, she'll nullify the original get, and her children from this other man are mamzerim. It cannot be. It cannot be that Torah facilitated a divorce process that can bring psulim. Rashi says, it cannot be. Another argument against Rabbi Elazar's chidush. This is all Rabbi Akiva speaking. I have another argument. So let's imagine that Reuven, the individual that she may not marry, was a kohen. Umeis ha-megarish. And it turns out that the original husband, the megarish, or we called him the megarish, he passed away. Now the question is like this. Can she now marry Reuven? So we have to keep in mind that on the surface, of course, she could marry anybody now. Her restrictions are off because the megarish, the original husband, is the one that stipulated, look, you're divorced from me, you can marry anybody except for Reuven. That stipulation only lasts as long as he's around, as long as he's alive. But once he's gone, once he passes away, all his stipulations, all his conditions, everything dissipates. Right? He's no longer around to insist on his conditions and his stipulations. We don't need his divorce. He's not here. Right? So, right? Imagine she would be married to him. Once he passes away, it's finished. She's an almana. Question. Let's say he passes away. Can she go marry Reuven? Certainly. What if Reuven was a kohen who cannot marry a divorcee? So you would say, 1 second. She wasn't divorced with respect to Reuven. He wasn't part of the divorce process, right? Marry anybody except for Reuven. As far as Reuven's concerned, she was never divorced from the megarish. And now when he passed away, she's merely an almana. She's a widow as far as Reuven's concerned, but no. No. Why? Lo nimtzis almana etzlei. Although she's an almana with respect to Reuven, because she was never divorced as far as he was concerned, But ugrusha etzel kol adam. But since she was a gerusha, she was a divorcee with respect to everybody else out there. That element of gerusha, that aspect of being considered a gerusha with respect to everybody else, comes back to haunt Reuven as well, affects him as well, and he must treat her as a gerusha. Rashi brings the Gemara we had yesterday, Visha grusha meisha, even a partial divorce. Any element, any aspect of gerusha affects a kohen. Even though, with respect to him personally, she was never a divorcee. She was still an ishes ish. She was fully married as far as Reuven was concerned. He never divorced her with respect to Reuven. And now when he passed away, she's an almana. Almana can marry a kohen, because she was a divorcee with respect to everybody else. That being the case, says the Gemara, let's take it a step further. An element of divorce, an element of grusha affects the kohen. Based on that, we can build up a kal v'chomer as follows. Ma grusha shehi kala. If the issa grusha, which is a relatively light isser, there's issa lav for a kohen to marry a grusha. So despite the fact that it's relatively kal, asura b'shvil tzad gerushin shabah, she's still asur to Reuven because she has an element of gerushin, like we explained. So let's just go back a line. When the Gemara says, "Lo nimtzes almana etzli, ugrusha etzel kol adam," that's the way it should be on the surface. With respect to Reuven, she's just an almana. She was never really divorced, as far as he's concerned. Although she was a grusha with respect to everybody else. But the reality says, the halacha says, that element of grusha that she has within her, with respect to everybody else, affects him as well. And that being the case, we can now build up a kal v'chomer. Ma grusha shehi kala asura b'shvil tzad gerushin shabah. If we find out it is a grusha which is relatively light, affects Reuven. Eshes ish shehi chamura lekolshkein. Certainly an eshes ish which is more severe certainly should have the same value. So what this means is like this. Let's just go back, start the case over. We have a husband, a megarish, divorces his wife. But you cannot marry Reuven. As far as Reuven is concerned, you're still a married woman. You're still an ishes ish. So she basically has within her an element of a married woman with respect to Reuven. So how can she go marry anybody else out there if within her lies an element, an aspect of a married woman? Although not with respect to everybody else, but with respect to Reuven, and that is sufficient to deem her an ishes ish and should affect her ability to remarry anybody. Basically, she should be usher to everybody. How can Rabbi allow her to marry everybody else except for Reuven? That leads us to the same conclusion, that this divorce system doesn't work. So there were four Zakanim: Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Nazariah. He was the one who said, well, Sefer Krisis means a complete disengagement. This is not a complete disengagement. She's still bound to him and she has to abide by his conditions. And then we have Rabbi Kiva with two separate arguments. Amalan Rabbi Yeshua responds to them. It's all well said, but Rabbi Elazar is not here to respond. Ein Mashivin Asari. We don't challenge the lion, Rabbi Elazar, the lion, Lachar Misa, after his passing. Rashi explains, Im hayakayam Shema Yachshur Lechem Teshuva. If he was around, maybe he could respond. So we can't conclude based on these challenges. Amar Rava, if you delve into these arguments, you'll conclude that you can pretty much respond to every one of these arguments. Kulu islu pircha. There's an answer to everything except for Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Levar mid Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who said, well, Sefer Krisis means a complete disengagement, no ongoing commitments. The Leslie Pircha, there's no way to respond to that. That's pretty bona fide and solid. Taninami Hachi. We find the same in a Brisa. Rabbi Yesi Ruyani is the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Midri Kulan. I accept Rabbi Elazar ben Azari's argument, and I agree with it, but more and better than everybody else's. Amar Mar. So now the Gemara will endeavor to discover the sort of faults in each argument. What did Rava mean that you can, respond and you can answer them? Let's go through them one by one. Amar Mar. So the first was Rabbi Tarfon. Nene Rabbi Tarfon Bamar. Hayishal chazu v'nisis lechav shal zeh. Again, so the case was we have a husband, we called him the Megarish, divorced his wife on condition you don't marry Reuven. She did so. She did not marry Reuven. She married Shimon, the brother of Reuven. Lachav shal zeh shenesra olav. Umeis b'lei bani, passed away with no children. She's not eligible for Yibum to Reuven. She's also to Reuven. As far as Reuven is concerned, she was a married woman all along. She should have divorced. So he's basically uprooting mitzvahs Yibum through this process. And that can't be. Question. Oiker? You Akar? Why are you blaming him? Is he uprooting? Is he, deliberately, he's just divorcing his wife. He's not getting involved in Yibum. Ela masna lakad of an means to say that, his condition, the kasha was, well, it's not his mitzvah, he doesn't have mitzvah sibum. Well, through his tanai, through his conditions, through his, funny arrangement, he's basically conditioning to uproot, to cancel a mitzvah. Masna? Well, again, why are you holding him accountable? He's making a t'nai to uproot Yibum. Mika Amarla, did he tell her to marry Shimon? Did he tell her that, you have nothing else that you can do except marry the brother of Reuven? I didn't tell her to do that. Ella Gurim La'akadav Natira. But we'll downplay it a bit. He was Gurim. He ultimately caused a mitzvah to be cancelled. Asks the Gemara, Goyrem. So that's considered causing a bittul mitzvah. Elamiyata, if that's the case, bas achiv la yisa. Forget about the story with the get. Can a person marry bas achiv, daughter of her sister? He shouldn't be able to, lest it come to a point that it's going to interfere with a potential mitzvah sibum. Well, we know that's not the case. Shema yamas b'lei banim. Look, he marries his niece and he passes away with no kids, and his brother can now not do yibum because it's his daughter. Shema v'nimtza goyreim lakadav v'natera. So he's going to uproot the mitzvah. We don't find anywhere that that's a concern. Ella, says the Gemara, Hainu Pirchas, that was actually the response to this argument that you can't hold him accountable for bringing about a causation which brings about mitzvahs yibum to be batal. That's not a fair argument, and there's no reason for us to hold back this arrangement. Asks the Gemara, 1 second. You recall we had 2 tracks in this whole sugya, chutz and almanas. So just again briefly, chutz means the Megarish divorces her. Look, you can marry anybody, but the divorce only pertains to everybody else except for Reuven. As far as Reuven is concerned, he's an exception in the divorce. Divorce doesn't affect him. She's not divorced as pertaining to Reuven. That's chutz. Or you have the almanas system, which is more subtle. It's a full divorce to anybody, but I'm conditioning. I'm making a t'nai. You're only divorced if you agree not to marry Reuven. So, ubamai, this whole back and forth, this challenge to Rabbi Elazar because of the fact that he's interfering with Yibum, right? What track did Rabbi Tarfon, who presented this argument, take? What approach to Rabbi Elazar's shita did he take? Ilam b'chutz, the chutz approach, Mishra Shar Rabbi Elazar. If this fellow was megarish with the chutz formula, then it wouldn't be a concern anymore. Once she went and married somebody else, and then he passed away. Right? The chutz stipulation is limited. it's only as long as she doesn't marry somebody else. But once she's married to somebody else, the first megarish is out of the picture. Taisa says, the time of the reason is keeping the nasa zeh shehutra. Once she marries a man who's permitted to her, nisraikin loikala ishus. He's totally in charge now. Upaka ishus sharishin legamri. The first fellow is totally off the scene. He's not a player anymore. The fellow totally took her over. All his stipulations and all his conditions, everything is gone. So the chutz stipulation would no longer be active once she went and married somebody else. Right, that's the case we're speaking about. She married a fellow, he passed away, and the question is she eligible to marry Reuven, who's the brother of that fellow? Well, she would be able to do that, because once she married Shimon, the brother of Reuven, the forbidden man, the Megarish's initial arrangement expires. Mishra Shara Blazer will allow her to marry Reuven. The Sani Moider Blazer agrees with Megarish as Ishtiv. Amla. He does a gerish, and he tells her, you can marry anybody except for Reuven. And she married a stranger, and widowed or divorced. She can go back and marry Reuven. Reuven is no longer asa because the Megarish's stipulations are out the window. So, what's the problem with Yibum now? El ba'almanas. So apparently we took the almanas route, not chutz. Chutz wouldn't apply anymore once she married somebody else, but almanas would. The Megarish tells her, look, you're fully divorced, even with respect to Reuven, but on condition you don't marry Reuven. So that condition holds long term. Even if she married somebody else in between, she's still bound by that condition. And that preempts her from marrying Reuven, even in a Yibum situation. That was the problem that we dealt with now. So bottom line, Rabbi Tarfon questioned the legitimacy of Rabbi Lezer's arrangement. How does it work? Doesn't it interfere with Yibum? Can't it come a situation where it's going to interfere with Yibum? And the response to that was, no, that's not his problem. He's not accountable for the outcome of his chutz and of his, even if it turns out that there's no Yibum, that's not his issue, and that wouldn't be a reason to challenge Rabbi Lezer. Okay, so next attempt. Then Rabbi Yehuda he responded, so this Isha can marry this guy, and that. Where do we find something usher to somebody and mutter to the next person? Ha'asr, if you're usher, it's typically all-encompassing. Usher lakoil. V'amutter, when something is mutter lakoil, it's comprehensively mutter to everybody. V'loi, really? We don't have selective isurim, we have many. Vari truma v'kachim. Who eats truma? Who eats kachim? Only a kain. Sha'asr lezeh, muteras lezeh. It's usher to an ordinary commoner, but mutter to a kain. Well, be'isur isha kamrina. We're speaking about marriage-related isurim. We don't find selectivity in that. What we do, v'arayis, a relative. She's usher to the relative, mutter to somebody else. Be'ishas kamrina. No, we're talking about an isur generated and created through marriage, such as our case. That can't be selective. What do you mean? Her ishas ish. Every married woman, she's okay with her husband and with nobody else. There you go. Hainu pircha, that exactly would have been the response to Rabbi Yehuda's challenge. And that's what Rava meant. Every one of these challenges can be responded to. Ubamai, now, once again, what did Rabbi Yehuda understand in terms of Rabbi Lezer's halacha? Which track, almanas or chutz? So we're going to go through this every time. Ubamai, ilim of almanas. That was speaking that the Megarish gave her a full divorce on condition you don't marry Reuven. If that's the case, so what's the problem? Harei hutra etzlei beznus. What's the challenge? What's the kasha? Well, you can't. You can't create an isser to one person and heter to somebody else. Well, she's technically, there is a way for her to be mutter to Reuven as well. He's not letting her marry Reuven. Almanas, that you don't marry Reuven. So if he wants to marry her, she's off limits. But in terms of other types of marriage, related interactions, nus, in a non-marriage context, in as much as it's inappropriate, but it's not usher due to his conditioning. So there you go. She's technically mutter to anybody. in his nus context. Ela b'chutz, apparently he adopted the other track in Rabbi Lezer. Chutz, he left out Reuven from that divorce process, in which case, in terms of any sort of interaction with Reuven, whether it's marriage-related or out-of-marriage interaction, she's considered a married woman pertaining to Reuven. And that triggered the kasha. Well, how can you have that? Okay. Nana Rabbi Akiva's response was like this. Imagine this Isha, who was sent away by the Megarish with this condition, went and married a stranger. She had some kids with him, his Armala, his Garsha, and then she left her new husband, divorced, widowed. And she went back and married this forbidden man, this Reuven fellow. To get bottle. And look what happens. The whole get becomes cancelled. Her children are mamzerim. It cannot be so. That the Torah would enable such a system? Well, says the Gemara, what's the difference than any condition? You're allowed to make a condition when you divorce, and she must keep that condition. So, anytime there's a divorce with a condition that, you give me 200 zuz. So, she should be asked to marry anybody. Why? Maybe she won't keep that condition. You'll end up with the same disaster. Nimtza get bottle, v'nimtza get bottle, v'nim amzir. Hani pircha. That's exactly the pircha, the response to this challenge. Why are we singling out Rabbi Lezer's arrangement? Every Tanai has the same issue. And just like we're not concerned there, we're not concerned here. Ubamai, again, which track are we speaking about? Ilam b'chutz, it was a chutz arrangement. Then the whole problem wouldn't exist. The whole challenge wouldn't take off. Mishra Shara. What are you concerned about? That she might marry somebody else, legitimately, and then leave him and then go back to Reuven and retroactively cancel the whole process and make everything a mess. Well, it will be untrue once she marries somebody else in between. The chutz stipulation put forth by the original husband expires. As we explained before, he no longer has that control once she marries somebody else. Mishra Shara, the Sandi Rabbi Lezer, Mishra Shara Rabbi Lezer, the Sandi Moeder Rabbi Lezer, Lezer agrees fully in this case. Megarish is ishtay. V'amar la harayat materes l'chol adam. Chutz me plainly, right? Our case. What did she do? And she married a stranger. V'olcha v'nisas l'echad min hashuk. And she left him. V'nis armla, v'nis garsha, right? So once somebody else came into the picture, the first guy's out. Shem materes l'zesh nestor olav. She's fully allowed to marry Reuven. So it wouldn't be an issue. There's no problem of messing things up retroactively. She's totally mutter. Elab almanas. Apparently, we're taking the almanas approach to Rabbi Lezer, which outlasts any other marriages. Basically, the Megarish still can have that stipulation running for a long term. I'm divorcing you on condition you don't marry Reuven. So now if she goes and marries Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, the condition is still in place. It's a condition like any other. And theoretically, if she would go back and marry Reuven, that's trouble. Davar achar. So this was the first challenge presented by Rabbi Akiva, which was based on the Almanas track. Davar achar, another challenge, which the Gemara soon will tell us is based on the Chutz track, because he wasn't sure which track to attack, which track, are we speaking about? So he sort of found a challenge for both possible tracks. Davar achar, another way to challenge Rabbi Lezer's Chiddush. Right, this was the complicated case we had before, the aspect of Gerish and the aspect of Eshes Ish. So we'll go through it again briefly. Imagine the Megarish sent her off on condition you don't marry Reuven, who happened to be a Kohen. Umeisa Megarish, and now the Megarish passed away. He added the picture. So it turns out that this woman is now a grusha with respect to everybody else, because she was fully divorced for everybody else. But for this person, Reuven, she was never really divorced until the Megarish passed away. Now she's an almana with respect to the Kohen. And now this generates a kal v'chayim. Grusha sheikala. The isser of a grusha to a Kohen is a relatively light isser lav. Asura mishum tzad gerushin sheba. That generates an isser to Reuven as well. What do you mean? As far as Reuven is concerned, she's just an almana. She was never divorced as far as he was concerned. She was a married woman until the Megarish passed away. Now she's an almana? No. Because she has an element. She has an aspect of a grusha within her with respect to everybody else out there. So that forbids her on Reuven as a grusha as well. So if we apply that rationale by grusha, certainly when it comes to the is eshes ish chamura, which is more stringent, like koshkin, certainly we should apply it, which basically means that we shouldn't let her marry anybody out there, even though she was divorced as far as they're concerned, because as far as Reuben's concerned, she was a married woman. I'm divorcing you for everybody else, but not for Reuben. In terms of Reuben, she's still a married woman. That element of an eshes ish should affect her ability to marry anybody else. So basically, the Isha is not free to marry. That's the kasha of Rabbi Lezer. Ubemai, now what are we speaking about? Ilaim Almanas, was it set forth as a condition? If that's the case, if we take the Almanas approach to things, then this whole kasha wouldn't be a problem. Why? What does Almanas mean? The Megar says you can marry anybody, but don't marry Reuven. On condition you don't marry Reuven. Marriage to Reuven is a problem, but znus is not included in that stipulation, right? He's opposed to her marrying Reuven. So if she marries Reuven, she's usher as though she's an eshes ish. But in terms of znus, other types of interactions, hari grusha esle beznus. In terms of znus, that wasn't included in the condition, and for all practical purposes, in terms of znus interaction, she's like a divorcee. It wasn't included in his condition. So basically, this whole kavachayim now falls apart. Yeah, you know why she was usher to Reuven? You know why she's usher to Reuven? Even after the Megarish dies, because she was a grusha to Reuven. Reuven's a kohen, he can't marry a grusha. Well, the question was, what do you mean? She wasn't divorced as per Reuven is concerned. She's only divorced as far as everybody else is concerned. No, the answer is, in terms of his nus interaction with this Isha, that wasn't included in the prohibition. She was considered a divorcee in terms of znus. So even Reuven treated her as a grusha to a certain extent during the Megarish's lifetime. So even after the Megarish died, she's not an almana to him, she's a grusha to him. Okay? So that dismantles the kavachemer. It's not because there was an element of grusha within this Isha pertaining to everybody else that it affects her potential marriage to Reuven. No, even with respect to Reuven directly, he treated her as a grusha with respect to his nus. Why couldn't he be mezana? Aside from the standard issues, but in terms of our context here, context of our discussion of gerushin and eshes ish, because the Isra this fellow set forth, the Megarish set forth, was only with respect to marriage, not with respect to his nus. With respect to his nus, she was fully divorced to him as well. So of course he can't marry her. But there's no reason why she can't marry anybody else out there. Non-Kayhanim. Just because with respect to marrying Reuven, she was an eshes ish. So what? What do they care about his business? With respect to them, she was a divorcee. So again, just to get this clear. The kasha was the Megarish divorced her on condition they don't marry Reuven. Reuven happens to be a kohen. Then the Megarish passed away. Why can't she marry Reuven? So we thought, although with respect to Reuven she was never divorced, but with respect to everybody else she was, and that affects Reuven as well. And therefore we took it a step further and we said, 1 second, so then we see that an element, an aspect of whatever affects everybody, so the aspect of eshes ish which she had with respect to Reuven should affect her potential marriage to anybody else. Nobody can marry her because she's a somewhat of an eshes ish. The answer is no. It's untrue. That rationale doesn't hold water. The fact that she has an aspect of Isra to one person doesn't affect her ability to marry somebody else. And the reason why Reuven can't marry her is not because she's a grusha for everybody else. She's a grusha for him too. Because he could have been mezana with her in terms of the context of our discussion. The condition was just don't marry her. But with respect to his nus, she was fully divorced. So that's why she's ushered to him as a grusha. So this couldn't have been this kasha that we had on Rabbi Eliezer. Ela b'chutz. Oh, so apparently we're going with the chutz approach to things. The Megar said, look, I'm divorcing you except for Reuven. So you're a divorcee with respect to everybody else, but not for Reuven. You can't marry Reuven. You can't be mezana with Reuven. Any sort of interaction with Reuven is contravening my stipulation, meaning you're still a married woman. You're still connected to me with respect to any sort of association with Reuven. Whether it's marriage or whether it's nus. Oh. So this rebuilds the Kal V'chomer. So why can't? After the Megarish passes away, why can't she go marry Reuven, who's a Kohen? She was never Grusha, as far as he's concerned. She was fully married until now. She couldn't do anything with her. He couldn't marry or be Mizah. Apparently because she has an element of Grusha within herself with respect to everybody else out there. That affects him. Okay, so then when it comes to Isur Eshes Ish, she was somewhat of Eshes Ish with respect to Reuven. That should affect her ability to marry anybody else. So she can't marry anybody. How could Rabbi Eliezer allow it? So that explains what Rabbi Kiva had in mind when he asked the kasha. Now, which way did Rabbi Kiva understand the sugya? Was it chutz or was it almanas? Rabbi Kiva ichutz virle. If he thought that Rabbi Eliezer was working with the chutz system, lois of chutz, then he should have asked the second kasha only, which is based on the chutz arrangement. The almanas svirle. If he figured Rabbi Eliezer was based on almanas, lois of almanas, he should have only asked the first question, which was based on almanas. Says the Gemara, he was covering all the bases. Rabbi Kiva shmiya lady kadam amar chutz. Rabbi Kiva got wind that there was an approach of chutz, vikadam almanas. Some learned that it was almanas. So he basically addressed both possibilities. Man da amar chutz, the one that learned that it was chutz, hai pircha, he presented the second question. The man da almanas, the one that learned that it was almanas, hai pircha, he presented the first question. Now, we have such a good kasha. What's going to be the pircha? Rabbi said every one of these challenges can be solved. Umay pircha. Well, perhaps we'll differentiate between the element of Gerusha, which affects the Kohen, even though it's not personal to him, it's personal to other people, it affects him as well. Again, basically the fact that she was a Gerusha to others, that makes her a Gerusha to him as well. Well, that perhaps cannot serve as basis for the next step of the Kal V'chomer, that Ish that affected him should affect everybody else. Perhaps the Isurim of a Kohen are different. The Torah holds them to a higher standard and can compare Isur of a Grusha to a Kohen. So even a limited Grusha affects him, whereas Isur Ish, which is, universal, perhaps doesn't work the same way. Just because she's an Isur Ish to him doesn't mean she's Ish to everybody else. Is that the pircha? Is that the solution to this problem? Well, says the Gemara, if you propose that that's the response, if we remember yesterday, Rabbi Eliezer source. How does Rabbi Eliezer even know that you can divorce in this fashion? A limited divorce, that was based on the pasuk by a kohen. Even a limited divorce makes her asav to a kohen. So we see that we pretty much compare apples to oranges. We derive from Isser Kuhuna to everything else. No. Remember, there was another option, another source, a non-Kohen source. Rava, who says there's a solution in our Gemara, he had a different source. That was the other pasuk, Rabbi Yanai b'shem zaken echad, back on DAF Pei Beis Amud Beis. The other pasuk which says v'holcha v'yatzma beisa v'holcha liish achar, she married, another man, even if she's only mutter to another man, meaning it's a limited divorce at work, so it's not a Kohen related source, and therefore we don't find anyway that Rabbi Eliezer learns universal halachas from Isser Kuhuna. Likewise, in our case, perhaps Isser Kuhuna is different, and you can't ask from that to ordinary people. So to summarize, we had a fellow who divorced, but does not allow her to marry Reuven. We had two tracks, either it's chutz or it's almanas, and 4 chachamim responded with their own personal challenges, to which Rabbi said, well, we can answer them all except for one of them, which was Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. Well, that's not called krisis if she's still bound to him and committed to him and his conditions. Amalhan Rabbi Yehuda. So, upon presenting their personal respective challenges, Rabbi Yehuda responds, well, it's unfair. Today, the Ari is no longer with us, the lying is no longer alive. It sounds like Rabbi Yehuda is taking his side. It means he agrees with Rabbi Lezer's approach to the whole discussion. Look at the list of Tanoim here who responded, who challenged Rabbi Lezer. We find, sorry, not in this price, but coming up soon, we find that Rabbi Yehuda wasn't too happy. He also responded to Rabbi Lezer. So why was he defending Rabbi Lezer? Defending Rabbi Lezer's, shita. He meant to tell them like this: the truth is, I also have my own personal challenge to Rabbi Lezer's shita meal, but nevertheless, fair is fair. Whether it's my challenge or yours, we can't do it now after his passing. What was Rabbi Yehuda's personal challenge? The Sanya on Rabbi Yehuda. He came up with a new way to ask on Rabbi Lezer's chiddush of allowing a limited divorce, because we'll connect makish koid me havaya shniya. We find that the pasuk connects the isha's status. Or the pasuk speaks about an isha who was married to one person, got divorced, married somebody else. So we find that the pasuk compares, equates, matches the isha's status prior to marrying man number two to her status prior to marrying Reuven. Because the pasuk says, Ki ikach ish isha, so Reuven marries, and then it says, V'hoisel ish achar, Shimon marries. So we compare the two states, the two situations. Just like prior to marrying her first husband, she wasn't bound to anybody else, she was a free lady. Likewise, her status prior to marrying the second man has to correspond, has to match. She can't be bound and tied to anybody at that point, which preempts any sort of limited divorce situation. You can't do that. Gufa, let's go back and review a chiddush that we said, that even Rabbi Lezer would agree in certain cases. Moider Rabbi Lezer megarish ishtay v'amarlo harayat materes l'chol adam chutz miploni. So a fellow is megarish his wife. You can marry anybody except for Reuven. And she married a stranger. That nullifies the whole system. That preempts any. When it's arblo and it's garsha and she left a second man, she's free to go marry Reuven because the former husband is a non-player. He has no input at this point because she was taken over by somebody else. Asks the Gemara, Hey Shiv, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Tshuva l'divrei Rabbi Lezer. Now comes Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and he says, look, I have a problem with this aspect as well. What do we find? Where else do we find that one person can make her asr? So the Megarish made her asr on Reuven, and comes the new husband and makes her mutter to potentially marry Reuven after his passing. Where do we find such a thing? I can make it asr, you can make it mutter. But really, we don't find it. Vari Yavama. Any Yavam. So what happens? Reuven passed away. And he has no kids. And the brother, Shimon, is going to be mater. He can do chalitza and let her marry anybody. So a Yavama has the same situation. The Baal Oyser, husband makes her Osir to marry upon his death. The Yavamata comes, the Yavam says, boom, you're mutter. Hasam Yavam Huduka Asarla. No, you're making a mistake. The original husband is not making her Asr. He married her, now he's gone. The reason why she's withheld from marrying anybody right now until the Yavam addresses her Chalitza is because of the Yavam. Dimi Baal, if only the husband, Hashayi Vakami should be mutter. It's only because the Yavam is on the scene. He's creating this. He's introducing the Isser. He's introducing that restriction. So he introduced it. He can remove it through the Chalitza. Harin Nadarim. What about Hataras Nadarim, right? The Noider As, Oyser V'chacham Mater. I make a neder and the Chacham says Mutter L'cha. No, that's not the way it works. The Chacham is just discovering a fault within the neder itself. He's just there to facilitate that. But he's not actually undoing what I did. Ha'am Rabbi Yechna, ein chacham mater klum. Chacham is not coming to permit the neder. He's not coming to nullify the neder. Ela b'charota. He's basically facilitating it. Did you really have this in mind? Did you? Perhaps you'll regret. And he's sort of discovering a fault within the commitment of the neder. Harei afaras bal. What about a husband who nullifies his wife's neder? You don't need charata for that. He just says blank out mutalach or mufarlach, right? Harei afaras habal. The isha nederes. She makes the neder. Ubal mefer. He comes and discards it. No, says more there as well. It's built into the system. It's not his doing. It's built into the system. Hasam kedar pinchas. Mishmei de Rava. Damar pinchas mishmei de Rava. Kol nederes. Any isha makes a neder. Al das bali nederes. Initially, when she makes that neder, it's with a full awareness, with a full cognizance. It's with that mindset. Look, I don't want to get on my husband's bad side. He's supporting me, etc. That's the essence of afaras habal. That's how he's empowered. That's why the Torah gives him that power. The Torah pretty much is telling us this idea that, yes, this is how it works. When Isha makes a neder, subconsciously it's dependent upon her husband's approval. So when he comes and he disapproves, he's not undoing her neder. The neder was never meant to be without his approval. Neder Rabbi ben Azari ve'Omar. So this was the only one that Rava certified, this challenge to Rabbi Lezer. Pasuk says krisis, right? Seva krisis. Davar hakuris b'nil b'no. It has to be an absolute disengagement. Halamad she's a krisis. Apparently, this arrangement that we have in our Gemara, you're free to marry him and not him. That's not called disengagement. She's still bound to him. What about the other Tanoim that did not work with this drasha? We have Rabbi Tarfon, right? The other ones, Rabbi Kiva. Apparently, they held that you can't learn this concept from the word krisis. So, high krisis, my abdilay, what do they do with the word krisis, which indicates full separation? Truthfully speaking, they do consider this to be a problem, but in other cases, which are more, which require more commitment, a longer term commitment than just this case. Let's see. They apply it to a more extreme case. So, in concept, they agree that it has to be a disengagement. Otherwise, it doesn't work, but it's only a problem if it's a commitment, a lass, throughout her entire life. If it's a full life commitment, that's not called krisis. As opposed to our situation where, sure, he's making it difficult for her. He can't marry Reuven, but you know what? It's only as long as the Megarish is around. Once he's gone, he's not a player, so it's not a full life commitment. It doesn't last till the end of her life. As opposed to the next case, the Sanya, we have a price. GITTEN. Here's your get. Condition: no wine for you. You can never walk into your parents' house. That doesn't work because it's going to last for her entire life. But if he limits it, it's only going to last 30 days. That's a fair condition. There is a krisis. So yeah, that's an extreme case. If it's going to be ad yoy maisa, says Rashi, she's kshura by ad yoy maisa, she's tied to him for the rest of her life. That's not krisis. But in our situation, I'm megarish you for anybody except for Reuven. Well, it's only as long as the megarish is around. That's not. Perhaps she'll outlive him. So in this case, it can work. V'idach and Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, who already used the word krisis for our sugya, mikaris krisis nafka, it could have said karis, said krisus, it's an extra expression. That in fact, both types of situations are problematic. Whether it's something that she must keep throughout his entire life, such as our case that he's stipulating don't marry Reuven, and likewise the case where she's bound to it throughout her entire life. So that's more simple, and we add even the case of when it's totally throughout his whole lifetime, that's also included in this problem. That's not called krisis. So basically we have two aspects, two cases, a more simple case and even a more advanced case. something which does not stretch until she dies, something which is only dependent upon his living, but even that's called a lack of krisus. Vidach kares krisus leidarshi, the other Rabbanan didn't have this double drasha, only had one drasha, and they chose to apply it to the most simple case, something which lasts throughout her entire lifetime. But as opposed to our case, where it won't necessarily last that long, perhaps he'll die first, so it's not considered an impediment to the krisus. Amar Rabba. Okay, so in line with the other shittas, that it's only a concern if it's going to be throughout her entire lifetime. Can't drink wine throughout my entire lifetime. Ain't a krisus. That's not considered disconnecting, because she's still bound to him. We'll see in a minute. The Gemara is going to explain it. But listen, here's your get. No wine as long as the other person lives. Hareza krisis, that's fine. Why is that fine? The Dilma Mois, because perhaps he'll die during her lifetime, and that will be a fulfillment of the Tanai, and then she'll drink wine, so she's not bound for her whole life. So in the first case, you can't drink as long as I'm alive. There as well. Dilma Mois, maybe he'll die first, and she'll have her time fulfilled while she's still alive. So why is that a problem? Rather, we'll switch it. You can't drink throughout your entire life. For the rest of your life, no wine, that's not called krisis. But if it depends on the Megarish's life or the other person, that's okay. Perhaps she'll outlive them and she'll have a wine later on. As long as I'm living, or the other person that has a krisis, that works. So on the topic of limited divorcing, says Rav, I have a question to Rav Nachman. He approaches his wife and says, look, here's your get, but only for one day. Today you're divorced, tomorrow you're back mine. So here it's a bit different than the Gemara until now, which dealt with selectivity in terms of people benefiting from the divorce. Right? You're married for everybody, but not for him. Here, he's not discriminating. Today, you're fully divorced. But tomorrow, you're fully undivorced. So here, the limitation is in terms of timing. Does it work or not? Mahu. Tiboy le Rabbi Lezer, Tiboy le Rabban. The question applies to Rabbi Lezer or the Rabban. Tiboy le Rabbi Lezer applies to Rabbi Lezer, who allows limited divorce. But Adkan, maybe it's only there that Rabbi Lezer allows it to go through. Elo de laman de kashari la'ilam. True, he was playing around. He limited it. You can only marry them, but not him. But them, you can marry forever. Today, tomorrow, next day. There's no limit on that. So perhaps that's why it works. It's a full divorce in terms of them. But here, it's limited in time with respect to anybody. So who says it works? No, perhaps no difference. Limited is limited and it works. So the question applies to Rabbi Lezer and to Bail Rabban. It can apply to the Rabban as well. Ad kan lekam Rabban Hasan. Maybe it's only in the other case where he limited, in terms of the beneficiaries. You can't marry Reuven, right? Eldle paskam legamri, because she was never fully disconnected to him, ever, from the Megar. She was still bound to him in terms of marrying Reuven. So perhaps that's why it doesn't work. Given the paska, but over here, the fact is today you're fully divorced. Fully. Rashi says, paska b'nei hayom legamri. Eitzel kol adam. You can marry anybody. You're free to marry anybody today. There's no limitations today. So maybe we'll say, once that happens, that's it. She's gone. Given the paska, can't have her back. So basically, it's going to be a full divorce and he can't have her back. After Rava presented this question, he came up with a solution. You know what, Mistaver, it's reasonable to say that it's over. Divorce is divorce and gone. Bein Rab Lezer, Bein Rabbanon, Kivan the Pascha. Once she's disconnected for today, Pascha, it's a total disconnect, and the Tanai is batal. We don't reckon with his conditioning. The get is a perfect get, and she's free to marry today, tomorrow, anybody she wishes. Okay, so briefly speaking, pretty complicated daf, but it was pretty much a one-topic discussion. We have a fellow, we called him the Megarish, divorced his wife on condition you don't marry Reuven. We had two approaches, either the chutz approach, you're mutter to anybody except you're not divorced for Reuven, that's an exception, accepting for Reuven. And we have the almanas condition. Marry anybody but Reuven. So you're fully divorced on condition you don't marry Reuven. Rabbi Lezer says it works. Chachamim disagree. We had 4, and then we had another 5th Tana challenging Rabbi Lezer, but Ein Meshivin es Ari Lachar Misa. In fact, Rava came up with a solution to all these challenges except for one, with the creases thing, which the Gemara elaborated on, explained the difference between various long-term conditions. The one that lasts throughout her entire lifetime, all agree doesn't work. But the one that only lasts throughout his entire lifetime, well, that's the Shaila. Some consider that a stira to creases, some don't. We said that even according to Rabbi Lezer, a chiddush, even according to Rabbi Lezer, that this type of system can work. I can be megarish you, but don't marry Reuven. That's only as long as the megarish is alive. Otherwise, he's out of the picture. And we concluded with a case, a strange case. Today you're divorced, tomorrow you're not. Does that work? The Gemara's maskana was, once she's out, and she's free to marry anybody that she wishes. All the best to you, and hatzlacha rabbah.